Hello everyone, I'm back. Let me show you what I did yesterday. By the way, while we're looking, there we go. Got a pretty cool sunrise. Okay, so yesterday I took all of that fiberglass mat and put it on the side of the car on top of the tape, put fiberglass on it, and then let it cure. Yesterday it was 106 freaking degrees for real temperature, and the feels like temperature was 112. So it was unbelievably hot, but I've got a deadline and I really have no choice. All right, so I did that, then let it cure, and then pulled it off. In hindsight, I would have used PVA instead. Those of you that aren't familiar with PVA, it's a spray stuff that turns into a film, similar to when you were a kid and you put Elmer's glue on your hands and pulled it off. Well, that's similar to PVA. It is water soluble, and so it creates an actual barrier in between. The reason why is, one, it took a while to tape this up. It probably took a good 4 hours to do all of this taping. As you can see, in some cases the tape stuck to the car, in some cases the tape stuck to the panel, and other places it did a little of both. I also should have waxed the tape. I knew that and didn't do it. So if you use tape, wax it, because otherwise you're going to end up with this. It took, I don't know, 30 minutes or so in all of these wedges to get the two to separate. So the main issue though is, if you look at this edge, either I didn't wax it enough, actually that's probably it. So when I pulled off the fiberglass, it pulled off the primer as well. That would not have happened if I would have used PVA, or maybe if I had waxed this better. Anyway, now I have damage I have to fix, of course. Let's see, the other thing is, I need to go to bigger wheels and tires. So since the rear wheels and tires on the C8 are bigger than the front ones, I thought, oh, well, I'll just swap them. That didn't work. What happened is that if you come in here, the inside of this hub actually hit the wheel caliper. I'm really surprised that GM didn't make it to where that part of the wheels are identical between the front and the back, but they didn't. So I ended up using a spacer. I don't know if you can see the spacer in there. It's sunken down in there where you can't really see it. Anyway, down in there, let's see, there it is. There's that spacer. I spaced it out. I had a thicker spacer here from a prior project, but it was so thick that there were no threads left. I couldn't even get a thread to catch to hold the wheel on to mock this up. So I had to end up buy some spacers. What they had in stock at AutoZone was this one, which is 5/16 of an inch, and this one that is 1/4 of an inch. Well, unfortunately, even though it says it's 5 lug, it would not go on the studs, which doesn't make any sense to me, but it doesn't matter. I really wanted to try the 1/4 inch. I obviously wanted the spacer as thin as possible, but it wouldn't work. It wouldn't even bolt on or slide on. So then I ended up using the 5/16. It has enough threads, obviously not as many as the factory, but it has enough that it would work. Obviously I don't really want to do that. One of the other things is, when I had the fiberglass on here, you can see that when I use the tape underneath, I could still clearly see the line there. So what I did was I took my Sharpie and marked all of the edges that were critical, and that includes this wheel opening. It took hours to get this wheel opening right, and same way with the the door opening. Same way with the wheel opening. I want the two to match, obviously. All right, so once I got it off of here, I pulled it off. It did not end up being as flexible as I'd hoped. Even the 8mm I'm sorry, 8/1000 of an inch thick stuff. But you get the idea. Let me back up so you can see the overall. So I literally just pulled this off of the other side. I didn't even bother taking off the aluminum tape because it was so hot. And I ended up making this in 2 pieces, not intentionally, it just happened that way. So that top piece is actually separate except for right there. Oh, that's the other thing. I should have finished the surface. I should have finished the side completely. This area right here where we stuck on the wheel opening is still rough fiberglass. I should have spent the time smoothing it and getting it all ready, and I didn't do that. Same thing here. I should have worked on the vents better. I didn't. So those areas are going to need touch up on both sides afterwards, but I just wanted to make progress on this. All right, so that's why that silver tape, aluminum tape is there, because this is a separate piece right here. I'm not going to rock it too much because it's easy to knock it loose. All right, so you can see that this gives me the outline of what this body panel needs to look like, except everything's curved in the wrong direction. It's curved the opposite way. If you look at it from the front, you can see that instead of this top front piece curving in like it needs to, it curves out. Same way with the back. So ideally my idea was, oh well, I'll just, by using the thin 8/1000 thick cloth, it would be thin and flexible enough to just turn inside out. Turns out that even that's not thin enough. I should have squeegeed it to get it down, but I didn't. And again, this was an experiment to see how all this stuff works or doesn't work. Maybe if I'd made the whole thing out of 8/1000 thick, it would have been more flexible. I don't know, you know, but I can still use it the way it is. So I made lines. All of those lines that are here, the alignment marks, I transferred over to this. So now, since this isn't flexible enough to flip inside out, option B is cut this right where this corner is along here. Then I'll flip it inside out and put it on top of here. If I didn't already have these panels, I would use this. The inside surface, I would have taken a little more time and gotten it smooth, and you can see where the primer came off. But this inside surface is really smooth. I don't know if you can tell. It has some air bubbles in it. Again, I would have used a roller and the peel ply to smash all of the air bubbles out, work all the air bubbles out and get it to work. But again, because I knew I had these panels, I only needed sections, I didn't worry about it. The reason I did this whole panel was just to show you how this would work. A lot of this panel I'm going to end up throwing away. But I wanted to show you how you could do it if you didn't have molds like I did, where I could go ahead and reuse these pieces that I already have. So what you would do is you would finish the side like you want it. Again, you would go ahead and finish it 100% or 90 or whatever you want. Put some kind of barrier to keep from damaging it. You can see that also the fiberglass stuck in some of these places, even though I waxed all of this. Ideally that wouldn't be there. But what you would do is you would go ahead and make this side, put the skin on there, mark it like you need to where all of the templates are. Come over to the other side of your car. If you make it in the 8/1000 of an inch thick, it might work. Again, I'll have to try it again sometime in the future, or you can try it. And then you would either turn it inside out or section it. And then you would screw this panel inside of these templates. And then you would have enough to, you would have to obviously redo the corners where you cut it, but you would have the shape and the dimensions correct. So what happened is, I know that that top edge, that curve, is the same between the two sides. So I don't have to worry about that. And because I've got the templates, I know that the curve, if I screw this, put enough screws in this to force this panel to go to the inside contour of the surface, then I know that's correct. Let me explain that a little better. So I have this piece right here where I marked, and this is the template that goes on here. It goes just like that, and it fits against there. Okay, to do this other side, I just flip this here, and so let's say I cut right here along this seam. I would take this thing, flip it over, and now I have the distance. You can see that this is the original C8. It was only this wide at this part of the car. Now it's this wide at that part of the car. So that gives me that dimension. Every single width here is already set by this piece right here. So when I flip it upside down, it's automatically going to give me that distance, and I'll know that this is where that curve goes, right here between the two. And then there's the edge, where the edge of the hood meets. And so you could just cut it, use this. Let's see, how would I do this? Oh, this, it would go like this. And so this right here, I would use enough screws to force this to curve the right direction. You can see this is somewhat flexible. I've got my hand on the back side, and as I push, it's hard to tell on the video, but I can see, you can see my hand through there. That's how thin this is, and that's the thicker part. There's the real thin part right there. That's only 1/8 of an inch thick. But you can see that it is working. This curve used to go the other way, and that can, I can force that. One of the reasons it doesn't want to is this back section I did. This is all 45 thousandths, this part right here. And it's not going to flex. That's too thick, I found out. Same thing here. This is the 45 thousandths thick. That's how thick that is. Oh, this right here. This is a single layer of 8 thousandths. So you can see how flexible this is. So, and it's also relatively stiff enough to hold its shape. So next time I would try just doing 8 thousandths all the way across the thing, and I think that would work. Anyway, point being that that would be thin enough that I can force that to go to whatever shape I need it to do. If I needed this to be whatever that curve is with enough screws, I could hold that in place. Once I get that held in place with all of these templates that I've made, then I will come in on what would be the back side and reinforce it with fiberglass. Let it cure, make it the 100 thousandths thick it's supposed to be for a real panel, and it would hold its shape. So that's how you would make a perfect mirror image from one side to the other. In my case, because I already have these panels made, I don't need to do all of that. And I have molds. If I didn't have molds, none of my approach would be possible. So with my mold, I have this piece right here that happens to be an exact copy of this inside edge. So I have this inside edge right here that I can literally just reuse it. Then I can take this other piece right here that I've cut off, flip it upside down, and that inside edge will match here, and then the outside edge will match where this is. I'm doing all of this because all I really need is the section that's foam to not be foam. I need it to be fiberglass. So I could do like a lot of people said, put fiberglass on top of here and sand it and smooth it and all of that stuff, but I hate doing that. I would rather stick stuff in a mold and come out with a semi-finished piece like this. So I will take this piece, put it on the inside edge here, remove this foam, screw this to the templates, flip this over, use the alignment marks to align this piece with the template. That'll give me that distance. And then I already have this outside edge that I will screw to the inside of the template here. So then all I'll have is a seam all the way across here where I had to separate these two. So from the back side, I can go back in, reinforce the seam, and I will have the panel like I need it. Same way with the wheel opening. That's why before I took this off, I sanded all of these edges to be exactly the same as the other side. So now I know that the curve of this opening is the same between the two sides. This back edge where I extended the outer fender, I know that edge matches exactly. So once I get any spot fixed in its XYZ location, then I know the rest of it has to be in the right location. So if I can fix some front edge to be exactly where it belongs and some back spot to be exactly where it belongs, then I know everything in between is where it belongs and the two sides will match. The big thing is the vents. Again, I tried to only put the 8,000ths, the single cloth layer. I put too much resin on it. It's not nearly as flexible as this. This I've squeegeed out and put exactly the right amount of resin. This was difficult to do because I was down on my knees and trying to piece all this together, and used pieces of cloth. And so in some places right there, you can see that got the right amount of resin, and that's a little more flexible. These other pieces, there's too much resin there. So the more resin you put in, the stiffer it is, which you may want, but in this case, I did not want. So if this had worked like I hoped, I could have flipped this inside out. Because it didn't, I can't do that. But what I can do is come in with my cutter and cut the outline of this vent. Once I've done that, and then I will cut out the outline of this edge of the vent. That'll leave this open. I can take this, push this in, use this as the spacer on the inside, and that'll make the vents, each of these vents, go in instead of out. That's not going to be easy. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be good enough that I can get everything in the right location. Again, if I had done a better job, taken a little more time, this would have come out better. This was just an experiment, so I didn't want to spend an excessive amount of time trying it because it might not have worked at all. As it is, it worked. I could see that had I taken a little more time and been a little more careful, it would have worked that much better. All right. I think that's it. So today my job is to, and here you can see the difference. It's kind of a line. So there's the thicker part that I purposely made to the 45 thousandths thickness, and then there's the thinner area where it's 8 thousandths, but again, I used a little too much resin. That should be just as flexible as this over here. It's not, which means I put too much resin in it. Again, this was an experiment. Now I know if you do want it to be flexible, make sure that you use your squeegee and your peel ply to get all of the excess resin out, because if you don't, it won't be flexible enough to turn inside out. I mean, if you look at this thing would turn inside out or any way I want. If that area had been that thin, I might be able to get away with literally turning this inside out. The other thing you have to be careful of, though, is here I did put that 8 thousandths thick area, and it's real easy to sand through that because it's only 8 thousandths of an inch thick. All right. Hopefully that made sense. If not, I am going to do another video after I've cut this into sections and mocked it up before I do the final piece of putting it all together. So I will show you the result of that. Hopefully that will make sense. But if you stand back and look at this, you can see that there it is. There's the basic shape. If that was white, then it would look like I'm a lot further along than I really am. I still have a lot of work to do. I do have an event this weekend. It's called Corvette Invasion in Austin, and ideally I want to take this car. That may or may not happen. I don't know. I still have other Corvettes I can take. One of the things is we're doing a parade lap around the circuits of the America, and you have to have a Corvette But like I said, I have other Corvettes that I can take. I'll probably take the 53 retro car. Let me go ahead and show you that. Unfortunately, I need a car timeout. I haven't driven this since I got my C8, so I'm sure the battery's dead and all of that. But this is a C5 that has a new body on it. I bought this one. And so it kind of looks like a 53 Corvette. I do need to clean it. I did do some work on it and it got messed up a little bit. And then when I was towing it one time, the wheel had a blowout on my truck. The tire hit the front of the car. It's on the other side, and it damaged it. And I have not bothered to get that fixed because I'm really not driving this car. I do need to get it out and start driving it. So worst comes to worst, I'll clean it up and take it. It's this Sunday, which is what, 4 or 5 days away. So, all right, that's all I have. Like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want. And oh, one other thing, I am looking at another place with a shop, and also happens to have a paint booth. So I'll let you know more as that progresses, or if it doesn't progress. But that would be ideal. I could be in a shop if I can end up purchasing that place. All right, and like I say, if you don't know what I'm doing, you don't know Jack. Bye.